Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. I'm Dr. Smalls, Director of Professional Development for the Maryland Department of Health's Developmental Disabilities Administration. We welcome you to today's Coordinator of Community Services Training, Part 2, Medicaid Waiver Enrollment webinar. And now I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Federal Programs, Rhonda Workman.
Thank you, Dr. Smalls, and welcome everybody. We're really excited about meeting today and reviewing information related to the Medicaid waiver application process and requirements. Today we have Alma Awasu Dankar, DDA's Division Chief of Eligibility, Debbie Belay, Coordinator of Community Services Squad Lead, Linda Yell, Deputy Director of Western Regional Office, and Christy Colbert, DDA's Division Chief of Self-Directed Services, that's going to be sharing information with us. So as you can see on our slide here, our agenda today includes a brief overview of Medicaid waivers. We'll talk a little bit about what a Medicaid waiver is, discuss the differences between eligibility and enrollment. We're also going to talk about the supports and services planning tool. So Debbie's going to walk us through that tool and remind us of the use of that tool. We will then get into the DDA waiver application process. And there's a variety of components of our application process, including the Medicaid waiver application itself, the person-centered plan, the level of care form, the freedom of choice form, the eligibility determination division release form, the financial eligibility determination, the authorization to participate process, and the overall decision form process. Alma is going to also remind us about maintaining eligibility. We'll talk about some of the requirements that are required annually and also get into a little bit more details related to the Medicaid redetermination process and the annual level of care recertification. And then at the end, we will also have some important eligibility reminders as we kind of recap some things that we talk about today. A few things to note is we will pause in different sections to take a couple of your questions. So we want to encourage you to put your questions in the question box, and we'll also take maybe a couple questions live before moving on to the next section. But you can continue to put questions in the question box. The questions we will be taking will be specific to the topic that we're talking about at that time. And then at the end, with time permitting, we'll go back to the beginning and refresh on some of those questions. In addition, I wanted to share with you that today, this is DDA's presentation with DDA subject matter staff sharing information specific to the process, but we are coordinating and will be scheduling an additional meeting where the eligibility determination division will also be sharing information and addressing some additional questions you may have. So we appreciate your time today, and let's get started. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So let's start with the introduction to the waiver and entitlement versus eligibility. Next slide, please. So our previous training and presentation was related to DDA's eligibility process. Remember, there's a two application process to get to waiver services. And so in order to receive funding under a DDA operated Medicaid waiver program, individuals must complete the two application process. So we reviewed the DDA eligibility application process in our last training. Today is about the DDA operated Medicaid waiver application process. Next slide, please. So what is a Medicaid waiver or a waiver program? A Medicaid waiver allows some Medicaid rules to be set aside to help people get their services in a community-based setting. A Medicaid waiver or waiver program supports people to keep, learn, or develop new skills to increase their independence in their home and in their communities. Next slide, please. A waiver is not an entitlement, as it is not an automatic benefit. If the person is eligible, individuals are not guaranteed to get services because there is a limited number of slots in the DDA or Medicaid programs. And if all slots are full, individuals will be placed on a waiting list until a slot becomes available. So we're just trying to distinguish. There's a difference between entitlements, such as maybe education, where access is automatic, services are provided based on legal obligation or meeting eligibility. Eligibility is a little bit different in terms of access is based on specific criteria, and services are provided based on available funding for the DDA operated Medicaid waiver programs. Next slide, please. We have been sharing a lot of information about the waiver consolidation. So DDA is consolidating the family supports, community supports, and community pathways waiver into one community pathways waiver beginning October 6, 2025. We've recently shared information in the DDA connection about the approval from the Federal Centers for Medicaid and Medicaid Services for our waiver amendment. And so this is going to allow participants to access their needed services across the lifespan. Individuals will no longer need to disenroll from programs that don't meet their needs to enroll into another one. And the Community Pathways Waiver will continue to offer our two service delivery models, the provider managed service delivery model and the self-directed service delivery model, and provide all the various services, including meaningful day, support services, and residential services. Next slide, please. And this is a visual that we've been using just to help people understand that the current DDA operated Medicaid waiver programs are noted there on the left, and they're all going to be consolidated into the Community Pathways waiver. So all participants will all be under the Community Pathways waiver. And we've been talking about some of those processes in terms of how that's going to occur. And we have some additional webinars coming up this week related to self-directed services update forms, new and updated forms, and LTSS updates that we hope you'll be able to join us. In addition, we've recently completed several webinars related to waiver changes in you that is available on our website and DDA YouTube channel. I'm now going to turn it over to Linda to start to share some information about the eligibility. Next slide, please.
DDA eligibility is completed. What's next? Next slide, please. Once an individual is determined to be eligible for DDA service based on Maryland's developmental disability criteria, they are added to the waiting list or the future needs registry. Individuals on the waiting list may choose a coordinator of community services provider, who then assigns the coordinator of community services. This graphic shows the 4 categories within the waiting list, along with a brief description of the service needs. Next slide, please. Once an individual is assigned a coordinator of community services, they should begin working with the individual to assist them with their needs. The coordinator of community services advocates for the individual and helps them identify and access needed supports. They connect individuals to community resources, such as low-intensity support services, Easter seals, summer camps, and other generic services. The coordinator can also make referrals to other Medicaid services, including Community First Choice, Community Options, the Model Waiver, or rare and expensive case management, if the individual is eligible. The coordinator should meet with the individual on the waiting list in person at least every 6 months and more frequently as needed, as noted in the Code of Maryland Regulations 10220905. The slide reference on COMAR states that the coordinator shall personally meet with each individual served at least every 6 months in an effort to effectively meet the individual's needs and preferences. Next slide, please. An individual remains on the waiting list with assistance from their coordinator until such time as they have a life change or an emergency situation. If the individual experiences a change in their circumstance, they should notify their coordinator so that a PCA can be completed, which is a priority category assessment. If the individual's circumstances meet the criteria for crisis resolution, and if authorized, the individual will be placed on a waive. An individual's place on DDA's waiting list is based on their priority category. Individuals on the waiting list who are experiencing a change in circumstance should notify their coordinator of community service. The coordinators should submit a priority category assessment form in LTSS Maryland for DDA to review. DDA will determine if the request meets the criteria for crisis resolution or another reserved category. If authorized, the individual will then be placed on a waive in LTSS Maryland. Next slide, please. We're going to do an overview of DDA's waiver application process. Next slide, please. And Alma is going to go ahead and talk about this section.
Thank you, Linda, and good afternoon, everyone. To be eligible for a Medicaid waiver program, the individual must meet waiver-specific medical, technical, and financial eligibility criteria. Applicants must demonstrate through a screening process that they need the level of support that people receive in an institution. Participants must meet a medical level of care need for an institution. For the DDA-operated Medicaid program, people need to meet the needs for a state residential center. They meet the waiver financial eligibility requirements, and they have a person-centered plan that supports their health and welfare. As a reminder, the DDA determines technical and medical eligibility, and the Eligibility Determination Division, or EDD, determines financial eligibility. Next slide, please. According to the concurrent eligibility process timeline, DDA waiver application packet should be submitted within 30 business days of waive placement. This slide is a high-level overview of the expected timeframes for the concurrent eligibility process that was implemented in February of 2024. The Medicaid waiver application must be signed and submitted within 3 business days of the applicant being added to a waive. The initial level of care, the initial person-centered plan must be submitted within 10 business days of the waive placement date. And the DDA waiver application packet must be submitted within 2 business days of the person-centered plan being authorized. However, more than about 80% of the applications received did not meet the required timeframes. Next slide, please. To streamline the waiver enrollment process, support both the regional office teams and coordinators of community services in adhering to the timeline, and improve the pathway to services for DDA stakeholders, we have made the following changes. The support services planning tool is to be completed annually for individuals on the waiting list. The supports and service planning tool helps identify current supports and important people in the individual's life, determine unmet needs and potential resources to address them, future development of the person-centered plan. This will also help to inform the initial person-centered plan when someone is placed on a waive. Effective now, The timeline has been expanded to allow up to 5 business days for the Medicaid waiver application to be submitted. We're combining the submission of the person-centered plan with the upload of the DDA waiver application packet documents in one step and allow up to 15 business days for this to occur. We're going to maintain 10 business days for the regional office programs team to complete the initial review of the person-centered plan. We're going to maintain 2 business days for the coordinator of community services to submit the DDA waiver application packet in LTSS Maryland. We will also maintain 2 business days for the regional office eligibility team to complete the review of the waiver packet. Next slide, please. This slide here compares the 2 processes and shows the updated process and time frames. The first is that it requires the support service planning tool to be completed annually for individuals on the waiting list. As you can see here, allows up to 5 business days instead of the 3 business days for the Medicaid waiver application to be submitted. It combines the submission of the person-centered plan with the upload of the DDA waiver application packet documents into one step and allow up to 15 business days for this to occur. As you can see, it maintains 10 business days for the regional office program team to complete the initial the initial review of the person-centered plan. And it maintains 2 business days for the DDA waiver packet to be submitted in LTSS Maryland. It also maintains 2 business days for the regional office eligibility team to complete the review of the waiver packet. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn this over to Rhonda for questions.
Thank you, Alma. We've gotten 2 questions, so I'm going to read these questions. If you'd like to ask a live question related to the information that Alma's just shared, please raise your hand. The first question relates to the new chart with the timelines, Alma, and they're asking, what's the timelines for the financial eligibility determination and the overall decision form? Because we haven't listed them on that slide. Can you talk about those timeframes?
Yes. The eligibility determination division determines financial eligibility criteria. And when we do have our meeting with them, they will share their timelines with us. That's why they are left blank on the screen.
Yeah, and the other thing we do know, so if we could go back to go back 1 slide, Dr. Smalls, that would be great. Thank you. So this is trying to show with the processes that we complete, meaning both coordinators of community services and DDA staff, the time frame to complete those steps. For financial eligibility determination from the eligibility determination division, once they get that application, they have 45 days. So, you know, we were trying to think of a different visual because it'll be once you submit that MA application in the system, from that point up to that first grade bubble for financial determination, that's a 45-day period. We didn't want to put 45 days in that bubble because we didn't want you to think that that was 45 days after all the other bubbles had occurred before it, because it's concurrent eligibility. But they do have 45 days to complete that. And then after we complete the authorization to participate, they would complete the overall decision form. And we have some slides on that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We had another question about the services and support planning tools. So we're going to be talking about that in some upcoming slides, and we'll share where those should be noted. Let me see. So we had a comment about if 80% of the packets are not meeting the timeline, that suggests some concerns. We absolutely agree with that. The timelines we have looked at, and Amma has shared some updates to those. Some of the non-compliance or not meeting the timeframes relate to different parts of the process. So in looking at, that's why we have made some adjustments to the process, and we'll continue to monitor that and make some updates as needed.
Rhonda, you also have one person with their hand raised.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and take the hand raise, and then we'll go on to the next one. So Heather, you want to share your question?
Yeah, thank you. My question goes back to those on the waiting list, where it says CCSs must meet with individuals on the waiting list in person at least every 6 months. Was this previously annually, and have the regulations changed, or was that always the requirement?
Yeah, so from my perspective, and Linda and Debbie, feel free to add, but the requirements for people on the waiting list will depend on what priority category they're in. Per the targeted case management regulations, which is COMAR 100948, if a person is in crisis resolution, then the meetings for them, if they're on the waiting list, should be once a month for the first 3 months and then quarterly. For crisis prevention, it's quarterly, and then for current requests, it would be annually. So we'll take a look back at that slide to make sure that it's reflecting the correct. Linda or Debbie, did you want to add anything to that?
No, Rhonda, I think that's exactly what our targeted case management information is.
Agreed.
Great.
Thank you all.
All right, let's go to our next section, if we could, Dr. Smalls, and we'll continue to look at some of these questions at the end, but let's look at our services and support planning tool.
Okay, so next slide. So the support services planning tool has been available for coordinators of community services to use since 2018. It is important that coordinators utilize this tool to begin to gather information about the individual, their family, and support network, and to review the individual's current supports and needs. While an individual is on the waiting list, there are many activities that the coordinator of community services can do to assist the individual with community resources, such as summer camp and community activities. And having the coordinator begin to develop their relationships with the individual and provide assistance while the person is on the waiting list helps to prevent crisis situations and helps in the development of that initial person-centered plan should the person need to begin waiver services. So within 30 business days of being added to the waiting list, the coordinator of community services and the individual must complete an annual supports and services planning tool. And this tool helps to identify the current supports, the important people, looking at any unmet needs, potential resources, other waivers, etc. And as I noted previously, it's a first step towards developing that initial person-centered plan. Next slide, please. The support services planning tool allows the coordinators to gather information related to the person's current and future needs. It can be used as a path to help guide the individual towards future meaningful day, support services, and even the possibility of residential services as well. The tool can be used to identify key team members and emergency contacts should an emergency arise. It also allows the coordinator to begin to discuss the individual's current financial situation to prepare them to be ready to enter into the waiver by assuring that they meet the financial requirements. Next slide, please. Individuals who are on the wait list could potentially benefit from programs such as Community First Choice or Rare and Expensive Medical Program. It's important that the individual and coordinator to begin to develop an emergency backup plan Should the individual have a significant life change, such as the loss of a parent or caregiver, the backup plan would assist in the development of that person-centered plan should the individual be in a crisis situation. Next slide, please. While the individual is on the wait list, the coordinator should begin to develop their individual record. The coordinator should help them to compile all of their medical, school, and financial records so it's available and part of their LTSS record. It's really important to have individuals apply for medical assistance early and any other benefits that they qualify for, so they get that additional determination of disability from the federal programs. This helps them to prevent any delays in getting approved for the DDA waiver. Next slide, please. And finally, coordinators should upload the supports and services planning tool in client attachments, with the format being form name, last name, first name, and form date. Coordinators can make comments within the comment box for clarity if needed. Next slide.
Thank you, Debbie. So that question we had originally was where to upload. So Debbie just shared in the client attachments and gave us some instructions on the format or the file name to add. Debbie, a question we received is, would the services and support planning tool be required to be updated annually?
Yes, it is, and the expectation that you're meeting with them, as Rhonda just reviewed, on the schedule per their waiting list category. So even at current request, it's an annual update. It's an opportunity for you and your CCSs, your agency, to engage with individuals to prevent crisis and to provide them with good case management related to community resources or meeting any of their needs. And it's also a fabulous time to start talking about the waiver.
Thank you, Debbie. And then the next question is, should the services and support planning tool meeting be held in person or virtual?
The individual always has the priority should they have a medical need or other issue that prevents them from meeting in person, but best practice is always that you want the CCS and the individual to meet in person. They get a fuller understanding of the person's needs, whether it could be a physical need or preferences, and it also helps to establish that rapport, which we really want to have good relationships between the CCSs and the individuals.
Thank you, Debbie. And then another comment suggestion about, considering reviewing the services and support planning tool, the actual tool itself, to maybe we could format it to be completed digitally. So thank you for that suggestion. We'll definitely look at that, and we'll want to team up with the coordinators of community services, communities of practice for other enhancements or adjustments to the planning tool. But at this time, we'll use the existing one and look to have more time and discussion to further enhance and update it. So thank you for sharing those questions and comments. Let's go to the next section and we'll come back to some more questions.
Thank you, Rhonda. Now we're going to talk about the DDA waiver application process. Next slide, please. Waive placement. Once determined developmentally disabled, individuals are added to the DDA waiting list as discussed on our previous trainings. People are prioritized and offered the opportunity to apply for entrance into waivers based on reserve capacity and the DDA waiting list priority categories. In LTSS Maryland, reserve capacity and priority categories are noted as waives. The DDA regional office eligibility staff must place someone on a waive in order for LTSS Maryland to alert the coordinator of community services to complete the waiver application packet. Next slide, please. Currently, there are 3 program types: the family supports, community supports, and the community pathways. Effective October 6, 2025, the Community Pathways Waiver will be the only program type available for WAVE placement. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Amma. So this is the beginning of our process, right, for the waiver application packet. And so as Amma has shared, the first step is once person's determined eligible for DDA, they're on the waiting list. And if they meet one of the reserved categories that are in the approved Medicaid waiver application, and they meet that standard and we have funding, we will then place the individual on a waive, which gives that alert to the coordinator of community services to let them know that that person has now the opportunity to apply to the DDA operated Medicaid waiver program. And so that's the alert that goes forward. The alert will include information related to the program. And as Amma has said, effective October 6th, which is next Monday, the only program that we will be putting people on the waives and should see plans, et cetera, will be for Communities Pathways Waiver. So any questions about waive placement before we start to get a little bit more in depth into the Medicaid waiver application? Okay, let's go to the next slide, please.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'll take this over. We're going to talk about the waiver application. Before we begin discussing the waiver application, it is important to distinguish between the Medicaid waiver application. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Small. Next slides, please. Thank you. It is important to distinguish between the Medicaid waiver application and the LTSS Maryland DDA waiver application packet. The Medicaid waiver application is the state application that is used for all applicants applying to a Maryland home and community-based service waiver program. Based on the individual's current situation, a long or short-term waiver application is completed. The DDA waiver application packet is the LTSS Maryland form that includes the overview section with the waiver application status, the enrollment checklist section that gets filled in when the level of care, person-centered plan, Medicaid waiver application, freedom of choice, and the eligibility determination division release form are completed or uploaded. There's also the documentation section that includes the Medicaid waiver application, freedom of choice form, EDD release form, meeting minutes or sign-in sheets, and other supporting documents such as bank statements, trust, able account information, etc. And then we have the workflow history section. Next slide, please. The LTSS Maryland DDA waiver application packet form includes a checklist that is associated with the various eligibility processes and requirements. The checklist is represented with a visual on the left of the slide. The visual on the right side of the slide represents the same components, but orders them differently to emphasize the importance of completing and submitting the Medicaid waiver application first so that EDD, or the Eligibility Determination Division, can begin their work. We will review each component on the next slides and share some important reminders. Remember that individuals and families may be in crisis, transitioning from the education school system, or have been waiting for services for a long time. As CCS is working with individuals and families, you are aware of their current goals and needs through your regular monitoring and follow-up activities and recent updates. Similar to the expectation that we would have if we had a family member in need of DDA services and supports, it is important for us to collectively work diligently to complete the steps so that the waiver eligibility determination can be made and an individual can access services promptly. Linda is now going to walk us through each component of the DDA waiver application packet and some important reminders. Next slide, please.
Okay, we can stay on this slide here. After waive placement, the Medicaid waiver application must be prioritized so that the Eligibility Determination Division can begin their work as soon as possible. The CCS must prioritize creating and submitting the Medicaid waiver application within LTSS Maryland. When first contacting the individual, the CCS can begin to share the waiver application process, including the supporting financial documentation that will be needed to be collected. The application can be pre-populated with all of the known information prior to the initial meeting. The initial meeting, the application can be reviewed and updates can be made. The application then needs to be signed and submitted in LTSS Maryland as soon as possible. Remember, you know these individuals and have been doing the monitoring and follow-up with them. They have shared with you their needs, and it's now your time to shine to move them into service. Next slide, please. The specific DDA Medicaid waiver application type is based on the individual's current situation. Long or short long-term care application is completed. The coordinator of community services will receive an alert after the waive placement telling them which form to use. And you can see what the alert will look like right below. Next slide, please. This slide relates to the MA long form. The Medicaid waiver application must match the waive program noted in LTSS Maryland, as seen on the previous slide, and should have the following in the upper right-hand side of the application. It should have the DDA waiver program, the coordinator of community services initials, and the date that the document was signed. This slide is an example of this requirement. Next slide, please. This slide relates to the short application. The Medicaid waiver application must match the waive program type as noted in LTSS Maryland, as seen on our previous slide. And for the short form, the coordinator of community services will note the following information as shown on this slide: the DDA waiver program, the coordinator of community services initials, and the date that the document was signed. Next slide, please. The Medicaid waiver application must be uploaded into LTSS Maryland. The documentation section of the DDA waiver application packet. Uploading this document allows EDD, the Eligibility Determination Division, to start their financial eligibility process. Supporting financial documents should also be uploaded in this documentation section. This slide includes a screenshot of the waiver application packet, the enrollment checklist and documentation section where you would upload this information. Next slide, please. If the individual does not have all of their supporting financial documents, the CCS must submit the MA waiver application with all of the available documents. The documents it's important to please not wait until you have all the documents that are on the list. Upload the documents that you have so that EDD can begin their process as soon as possible. The documents provided after you submit the packet can be uploaded in the client attachment section under the financial document dropdown. This slide includes a screenshot of the client attachment section under the new documents, and you would add the documents under the financial documents section. Next slide, please. The Medicaid waiver application has 6 months consideration period, which begins on the first day of the month the application is received. For example, if the application is signed on February 21st, the consideration period is from February 21st through July 31st. July 31st would be the end of the 6-month consideration period for a February 21st application. If any supporting documentation is missing, EDD will send a request for information letter with the date that the information must be returned to EDD. Applicants who do not comply within the designated timeframes will get a denial letter. If you submit the missing information before the end of the 6-month consideration period, the individual can still be enrolled. If they do not submit the missing information before the end of the 6 month, they would have to start the waiver application process all over again. Next slide, please. Applicants who do not comply with the designated timeframes will get a denial letter. If they submit the missing information before the end of the 6-month consideration period, the individual can still be enrolled. If they do not submit the missing information before the end of the 6th month, they will have to start the waiver application process all over again. Coordinators of community services should reach out to their regional offices before reapplying. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Linda. So we've got a couple questions and a couple good suggestions. First question, does the paper copy of the waiver enrollment checklist still need to be uploaded to the waiver packet? I think that is a yes. Anna, Linda?
I'll take this. Yes, if it's uploaded, that would be great.
And I know we're going to talk about the entire packet a little bit later.
Yes.
We had a suggestion to provide a step-by-step reference guide for Medicaid waiver applications for coordinators of community services. I think that's a great suggestion. I think we can also look to partner with our Director of Family Services to see if we can have a plain language as best we can guide for individuals and families related to the Medicaid application. So something we can definitely look into. We had a question about level of care related to dates and to match it. Please note we will talk about level of care in upcoming slides. So we will be addressing that question. We had a comment about our statement that we should not be holding Medicaid applications if we don't have all the documents, and maybe some concerns that if we don't submit the application with all the documents, there may be some delays with processing, as EDD will have to request that information. Please note that when you receive that Medicaid application and it's signed, it becomes a live document. So we do need you to submit it at that time and continue to work with the person to get their documents in. We have some situations where Medicaid applications are signed and uploaded within a few days, but we also have some situations where applications are being uploaded several months after the signature, which poses great concerns related to that. So ideally, as Debbie shared initially, when we're starting to meet with people on the waiting list, they can start to put together that folder of information and documents so that when that opportunity comes to apply to the waiver program, they'll already have that information ready to go. And the waiver application has that great checklist that people can use. So we want to just make sure we're getting them in as soon as possible. Question about the 6-month consideration period. From that perspective, our goal obviously is always to get the application with the supporting documentation in as soon as possible and the entire concurrent waiver application process completed so that we can have someone enrolled and receive those services as soon as possible. We have some questions related to the eligibility determination division. And from that, I would just always like to share that we continue to work with our Medicaid partners to support them in their updates and enhancements and strategies related to their business processes and responsiveness. So we'll continue to support them and advocate for their enhancements to their strategies and staffing. With that, I'm seeing we got some questions about wave placements, so we'll save those for the end. So a couple questions about the state review team, so we'll talk about that. So why don't we go ahead and go on to the next section and we'll continue to go through questions. Thank you.
Okay, so for person-centered plan, next slide, please. The person-centered plan is a component of the required DDA waiver application packet. The PCP is an outline of the individual's goals and their visions for their good life. A good PCP is comprehensive and it ensures that the individual's assessed needs are met through various supports so that they can achieve their goals and objectives towards their defined good life. The PCP is based on information gathered during the interview process and the assessments and meetings with the individual and their team. Next slide, please. All new waiver applications must have an initial person-centered plan. Currently, the person-centered plan program must match the WAVE and MA application waiver program type. Please note for bullet 1 above that the DDA will only have one waiver, the Community Pathways waiver, beginning on October 6th. Once that change occurs, the only WAVE option will be the Community Pathways. As CCSs are working with people and conducting regular monitorings and follow-up activities, you are already becoming familiar with the individual's goals and their initial immediate needs. Those immediate needs can be noted in the initial PCP for waiver enrollment. Our collective goal is to support the individuals in getting enrolled in the waiver and starting services. So it's particularly important to submit the initial PCP as soon as possible. The plan can be revised as needed afterwards. The PCP can be pre-populated by the CCS based on previous discussions, monitorings, follow-up activities during their waitlist coordination, and utilizing the supports and services planning tool. It is important to note that the initial PCP can be submitted without a provider, as it's important to get the waiver process moving. The provider can be added in a revised PCP. Another critical point to remember is that initial PCP is an opportunity for the individual to pick their annual plan date. It is important that the team discuss this date as it is fixed once established, much like a birthday. I'm now going to turn it over to Christy to share information about the new self-directed services orientation, that's required prior to submitting the person-centered plan. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Debbie. Before we go there, we're just going to pause and see, does anybody have any questions about Debbie's information about the person-centered plan? Okay. Debbie, can a person-centered plan be revised if it's not active?
The plan, in order, you have to match the dates. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words. You can start the revision, etc., but you have to coincide your dates so that one plan is ending when the next one starts.
Thank you. Next question, do we need an approved initial PCP to submit the waiver application? So I think let's distinguish two things. There's the waiver application, which is the Medicaid application, and then there's the DDA waiver application packet. So if you're talking about the Medicaid application, that should be completed first and submitted. We don't want you to hold those. We just talked about that in terms of don't wait for a lot of documentation to come in. Once it's signed, get it uploaded, get it in. For the entire DDA waiver application packet, the initial PCP must be submitted and approved before the entire packet can be submitted. That's why we want to work on these concurrently and get them in so the regional office can review those. Next question, Debbie, will the no provider PCP apply to plans for residential? Does it matter what the services are? Can plans be submitted without providers?
Yes. A plan can be submitted, again, as we noted. The initial PCP is those immediate needs. We need to get the waiver in place before any services can start so that initial PCP can go in. A revised PC with the identification of the providers could then be submitted to coincide with the waiver approval date.
Great. Debbie, are there any instances when an annual plan date can be changed?
That would be very limited. It causes tremendous complications, both for the individual, the providers, and tracking within LTSS. So that would be a one-to-one discussion.
Thank you, Debbie. And so thus the importance of talking about that during the meetings to set that annual plan date. And it could be 3 months out, 6 months out, et cetera, but it's important to set that thinking and considering the person and their team. So if I have a sister that lives in Florida that's typically more available to participate in the team meetings in the summer, I might want to consider my annual plan date to be around that time. So Debbie, when submitting a person-centered plan without a provider, the coordinator is asking, what does that look like when approved? So can you talk about what the detailed service authorization section would look like with an approved plan without providers?
Sure, it would show the need for the meaningful day service, potentially the community living group home, personal supports, outlining the immediate need for services and what has been identified by the team. And then when you did the revise, you would go back in, and for the meaningful day, you would provide, the provider name, site, as well as for residential, et cetera.
Great, thank you, Debbie. Another person did ask, does the PCP have to be approved and active before sending the Medicaid application? So no, the Medicaid application needs to be submitted as soon as possible. We have a hand raised, so let's take the question from Adatun. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I wanted to ask if what is the process that's involved in reactivating a PCP that's been inactive and due to the approval process by EDD? What do we need to do as CCSs to reactivate PCPs?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question, and it makes me think of a variety of different situations. So Debbie, I'm going to turn it over to you to see if you have some initial thoughts, but I would suggest one, definitely you can reach out to your regional office for some support related to that. Person-centered plans that we're talking about today is specifically to the waiver application process. So this isn't reactivating one. This is one that hasn't been, the person hasn't been enrolled in the program or maybe re-enrolling in the program. So an initial plan is required. The waiver packet has to be completed and submitted, and we have to go through the entire process that we're talking about today. And once the person is enrolled and they're enrolled in the Community Pathways waiver as we go forward, then their plan will become active. If they don't have an active program enrollment, then that plan will not be active and can become inactive. In your situation, it could be someone involved with a redetermination. They lost eligibility, the plan becomes inactive. And so if their eligibility gets reestablished within the consideration period, that time frame that we'll talk about a little bit later, then that plan can be reactivated. But it's going to be very individual based on the person and the situation.
This is actually a PCP for, thank you for that response, but this is actually an initial PCP. Between the period of approval, eligibility approval by EDD and the current time frame, the PCP became inactive.
Okay, yeah, so if initial plan became active, the whole enrollment process occurred, that's great. If something happens, the person lost eligibility, redetermination was asked or additional information was requested, there could be a situation where the person then is disenrolled and that plan will become inactive. Okay. Debbie, did you want to add anything else?
No, I agree 100%. You covered everything, and please reach out to your regional office. They'll be able to review the waiver screens and everything else and give you any technical assistance you might need.
Thank you.
And just to note that the plan, if eligibility is reestablished, the program enrollment is reestablished by the eligibility determination division, that can reactivate the plan. So there's no additional actions needed related to that. All right. Thank you for your question.
And Rhonda, did we want to make note, I got a ping on it, that a reminder that during our transition, October 6th, 7th, we may have a few plans that don't go active for a day or two until the system catches up.
Yep, that's a great reminder. Do you want to talk a little bit more or you want me to?
I would like you to.
Okay, thanks. So Debbie is talking about a recent communication that was sent out via LTSS Maryland to all coordinators of community services and DDA providers to alert you that during the transition, starting next week, as the systems transition people from family supports and community supports to community pathways, their program enrollment will show on October 6th for community pathways. And because there are 3 systems involved that they'll be communicating to each other, that the person-centered plans for family supports and community supports participants may be delayed by up to 2 days for that plan to become active as the systems talk to each other and activate those plans. So October 6th, all program enrollment will occur. So people will all show up as community pathways participants, and all person-centered plans will be converted to a community pathways plan and be active by October 8th. So thank you, Debbie, for sharing that. Why don't we go to the next section and we'll come back to some additional questions at the end.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christy Culbreth. I am the Division Chief of Self-Directed Services for the DDA, and we're going to be reviewing, in particular, the Self-Directed Services Orientation. Next slide. Just as a reminder, the Self-Directed Services Orientation is an opportunity for participants and their teams to learn about the rights and responsibilities of self-directed services before they begin services within that delivery model. The orientation helps the participant and their team be best prepared to begin self-directed services. Next slide. The coordinator of community services facilitates the orientation meeting. The participant must be present and may invite any team members that they would like to the orientation meeting. The participant may choose for the orientation meeting to be virtual, that means online, or in person, and that orientation meeting should be scheduled quickly after the participant requests it within 10 business days. Next slide. The Self-Directed Services Orientation consists of the first 3 modules of the Self-Directed Services training series. That's Module 1, the Self-Direction Overview, Module 2, the Self-Directed Services Team, and Module 3, Person-Centered Planning. The orientation meeting should be scheduled for at least 2 hours to make sure there is enough time to view those videos and have breaks in between. Next slide. During the orientation meeting, the coordinator of the community services will play the video of each module. They'll review the orientation frequently asked questions tool, which is provided by the DDA. They'll share the contact information for the self-directed services staff, that's the self-directed services lead in the regional office, and complete the self-directed services orientation checklist. Next slide. More about the orientation checklist. So it will note all team members who were present at the orientation meeting. It'll note when the 3 videos were completed during the meeting, and the coordinator of the community services will confirm that the frequently asked questions tool was reviewed and that the regional office contact information was shared. And that orientation checklist must be uploaded into LTSS Maryland. Tomorrow, during the Self-Directed Services Forms webinar, we will go over in detail the orientation checklist. Next slide. The DDA Self-Directed Services Orientation is required for all new applicants interested in self-directing their services and participants using the provider-managed service delivery model who are interested in the self-directed service delivery model. The orientation is not required for people who have been self-directing their services before October 6, 2025. We encourage all stakeholders, including coordinators of community services, to review that self-directed services training series to learn more about the self-directed services model. Next slide. If someone is planning to self-direct their services between October 6th and December 31st, 2025, they must complete the orientation by March 31st, 2026. Doing that orientation will make sure that they can continue to self-direct their services. If you support someone who are planning to self-direct with an annual plan date of January 1st or later, they must complete the orientation before beginning self-directed services. As a reminder, if you support someone who has been self-directing their services before October 6th, they will not need to complete the orientation. I'll turn it back over to Rhonda for questions.
Thank you, Christy. And we absolutely encourage everyone to view the self-directed training series. And Christy has been working with the teams to update that information to align with our waiver amendment. So Christy, we did get one question while you were presenting. I think you shared this, but let's ask it. When can we expect the orientation checklist to be released and added to the DDA website?
Thanks so much for that question. It will be online tomorrow.
Thank you, Christy. Another question says, will the option to identify traditional or self-directed be available effective 10/6 in the priority category assessment? Yes, it will be available 10/6 in the priority category assessment. And what this question is really related to, it's not related to specifically the orientation, but it does help us to identify those individuals that are interested in self-directing services and to flag them that if they're offered the opportunity to apply, that they would need to complete the self-directed training orientation. Christy, is the self-directed services orientation required if a person-centered plan is submitted and are approved, but not effective prior to 10/6? Will they need to complete this?
That's a great question. So if a plan has been approved, if somebody is self-directing, let me read this again so that we're all clear on this.
So the plan's been submitted, or maybe it's approved, but it's not effective till 10/6. Do they
Yep.
still need to do the self-directed training?
So they would need to do it before March 31st, 2026.
Thank you, Christine. That looks like the questions that relate to this area. So let's go to the next section.
Right, we're going to be talking about the level of care. Next slide, please. The next component of the DDA waiver application packet we want to review is the level of care form. Prior to entering the waiver program, individuals must be certified as being in need of waiver services and must meet Maryland's developmental disability DD eligible criteria, which includes the need for active treatment. The level of care form serves as documentation that an individual is medically eligible to participate in the DDA waiver program. Next slide, please. The initial level of care form should be completed with the Medicaid waiver application and uploaded into the DDA waiver application packet. Please be sure to use the current initial level of care form, which is posted on the DDA website and also in this presentation. It is important to complete all required fields in the form and for this coordinator of community services to sign the form before uploading it into LTSS Maryland. Next slide, please. The level of care effective date. The level of care effective date should reflect the same date as the date the MA waiver application was signed by the applicant, as shown in the image displayed. It is important to note that there are minor changes to LTSS Maryland level of care form. It would no longer have the service delivery model noted, and this will be reviewed further in Friday's LTSS Maryland Updates webinar. Next slide, please. The level of care end date should reflect a year after the initial level of care effective date. The level of care end date pre-populates the end date based on the effective date that is noted, as shown in the picture below. And I'm going to turn this over to Rhonda for some questions.
Thank you, Alma. Question came in, if a waiver packet expires, do we have to complete a new level of care form? So if they're, I guess, past the 6-month consideration period, they've got approval from the regional office to complete another waiver application, do they have to do a new level of care form?
If the regional office has been reached out to and they're asking for a new waiver application, and a new initial level of care form will be needed as part of the new waiver application packet.
Thank you, Lynn, or thank you, Amma. Does the level of care date have to match the Medicaid application date for current applications in process? This was an old rule that was changed, but seems to be going back to the old protocol. Can you clarify what the rule is that we have been operating under?
Yes. So we want the MA application signature date to match the level of care effective date. This will make sure that we're meeting that performance measure that requires that a person has been certified to meet the level of care requirement before entering the waiver service.
Thank you. And then we had a comment or question about the level of care and whether a CCS should be responsible for completing that or the medical professional. So what the CCS is completing is confirming that the person continues to meet the developmental disability or developmentally disabled eligibility category. The person also notes, what if the CCS truly feels an individual does not meet the required level of care? If you feel that someone does not meet the required level of care, please reach out to your regional office and have that discussion. Some individuals were determined years ago, even decades ago. So it's important, if you feel things have changed and they no longer meet that level of care, please reach out to the regional office and we can further support you and look into it. We had a question about recertification, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So we'll ask you to ask that when it comes up there. Amma, what happens if you put a different date on the level care than the Medicaid signature date? How do you change it?
When you upload, oh, I'm sorry, Rhonda.
No, go ahead.
Okay. When you upload the level of care form into LTSS Maryland, you have the opportunity to change that effective date. So you should be able to do that. In instances when you don't do that, the regional offices will send it back to you in clarification so that you can correct that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will review when you submit the waiver application packet to make sure it meets all the standards and the rules, because we can be reviewed and audited by the state and also by the federal government. So if we do find a discrepancy or an error, we will reach out to you through a clarification, and that provides the opportunity for you to correct that. Thank you for asking that question. All right. Next question, Linda, maybe you can help. Do all regional offices require a wet signature for level cares, or can CCS use electronic signatures? Is that something we want to talk about and get back to them?
At this time, we're asking that folks use wet signatures. This is a topic that is being discussed, and we will be releasing more information on required signatures in the future.
Thank you, Linda. All right, let's go to the next section.
Thank you, Rhonda. Freedom of choice. Next slide, please. The freedom of choice form documents that the individual has elected to receive services and supports through a DDA waiver program instead of an institution or some other entity. It also indicates that the individual understands that they can choose among service models and receive DDA services from any of the approved DDA providers. It is important for CCSs to review this information with the individual so that they are adequately informed. The DDA Guide to Services and Easy Read Guide is a helpful tool to share with people and families. The form includes a box noting which service model the individual is interested. Selecting a model on this form does not commit the individual to the selected model. As a reminder, People can explore the self-directed services model in the new DDA service self-direction introduction sessions. Individuals can begin traditional services while exploring the self-directed services to prevent any delays in getting their immediate needs met. Next slide, please. This slide is a reminder to use the current freedom of choice form and complete all required fields, including the individual's name and required signatures. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda for questions.
Thank you, Alma. So any questions on freedom of choice forms? I'm getting some more questions or suggestions about timestamp signatures and DocuSign, etc. So as Linda mentioned, we will get back to you with any additional options related to that. All right, let's go to the next section, please.
Rhonda, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I didn't know this was my section here.
Wait, I think it's mine. Sorry.
I think it's Linda's. Thank you.
Next slide, please. For the next component of the waiver application, we want to review eligibility determination division release form. The EDD release form provides information to the individual's financial eligibility and to other individuals. The individual must sign the form and indicate who they would like the eligibility determination division to share their eligibility information with. In many cases, the individual indicates that they want the CCS or the community coordinator of community services to receive a copy of all of their financial information related to eligibility so that they can also receive the letters and notices on the individual's eligibility status. It is very important to update this form and submit it to the eligibility determination division when the CCS changes, especially when the individual chooses a different CCS agency. This form was updated to reflect all DDA operated waiver programs and posted on the website at the link noted on this slide. Please remember that any time that the CCS changes for an individual, that a new form is required. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Linda. Someone put in our question box, what do we do if a person refuses to sign? That may have been related to the freedom of choice. If an individual refuses to sign, please reach out to your regional office so we can further support you and the person to make sure they understand the process and the requirements. So if you have that in any situation, please reach out to the regional office. Another question, if a person has not used services in 2 years and an authorization to participate has been completed, does a freedom of choice need to be signed? I would also like you to reach out to the regional office so we can understand that situation more in terms of, are they in state funded services and kind of what's going on with that person. Questions about if a person has a power of attorney, who signs the PCP signature page? Linda, Debbie, do you guys have any response to who should be signing the plan or the forms? I would say that Absolutely, we always encourage the participant to sign, and then if they have the legal guardian, I think that that would be the person that would be signing as per the forms and documents. Do you have any
That is
thoughts?
also what the eligibility determination division requires as well, that not only does the guardian or the representative sign, but the person also signs.
Thank you. Can we confirm that the EDD release form that you were just talking about should note the CCS provider, not individual CCS on the EDD release form, correct? So I think it does note the CCS provider, and then it's important to make sure that if the coordinator changes, that that's updated in the system, so that EDD would be aware of that. Is that accurate? The CCS provider would be noted on the form. Linda or Amma, do you want to confirm that?
Yes, so they can list the agency. It just needs to be signed by the person and the authorized representative.
Thank you. Okay, then they wanted us to confirm that we should update the release form each time a CCS changes. I think if the provider agency is noted, that would be good, but I highly recommend, and I think all CCS agencies do have release forms that they have so that you can better support people. Which CCSs reestablish or resubmits the EDD release form, the outgoing or the incoming agency? I would suggest the incoming agency would submit the form. Linda, Amma, do you agree?
Yes, I agree with that. The incoming.
Okay. All right, so I think that's related to our EDD release form. Let's go to the next section.
The next section is our DDA waiver application packet. Next slide, please. This slide highlights the documents that are in the DDA waiver application packet. As previous slides, the various processes and documents can be completed concurrently or simultaneously so that everything can be submitted at the same time. There are a few highlights to remember. All documents can be pre-populated before your initial meeting. You know these individuals, you've been working with them for some time now, and so you should have a lot of information already. The MA waiver application should be submitted within 5 business days from the date of the waived placement. The PCP should be submitted within 15 business days from the date of the waived placement. Use current LOC, FOC, and EDD release forms. That's the level of care, the freedom of choice, and the eligibility determination division release form. Upload those with the PCP within 15 business days from the date of the waived placement into the appropriate section of LTSS Maryland. Please feel free to print out this slide and other slides as desk reference tools. Next slide, please. When the coordinator of community services submits the DDA waiver application packet, it serves as an attestation that all required application components have been submitted. So you are agreeing that you have reviewed and made sure these are all accurate and submitted appropriately. The full packet is ready for DDA and that it is now ready to be reviewed by the regional office. Next slide, please. Clarification requests may be sent by the regional office in cases where the demographic information is missing or incorrect, the Medicaid waiver application. Only authorized representative has to sign the waiver application, and there's no proof of legal guardianship or power of attorney that's attached. It'll also be sent back if there are outdated forms that have been completed. Next slide, please. The Medicaid waiver application is not signed or dated correctly if the Medicaid waiver application is expired, if sections of the Medicaid waiver application have been crossed out, if there are required forms that are missing or completed incorrectly or not legible. The CCS uploads photographs instead of the PDF documents. If the meeting minutes are not comprehensive or are missing key information. If an initial level of care effective date and the Medicaid waiver application date do not align. Next slide. The CCS waiver application process checklist is used to ensure that every required piece of the packet is included and accurate before submission. The DDA regional office reviews the submitted packet, and if the packet meets all of the requirements, the DDA regional office approves the waiver application packet. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Linda. So any questions about the information that Linda just shared with us in terms of the DDA waiver application packet? Okay, let's go on to financial eligibility determinations.
Thank you, Rhonda. Next slide, please. As we mentioned previously, the Eligibility Determination Division reviews financial documentation and makes a determination. When a Medicaid waiver application is received, an Eligibility Determination Division case manager reviews it to determine if all required financial eligibility documents or verifications have been provided. If information is missing, the Eligibility Determination Division case manager will issue a request for information letter. The form will list the missing documents, the due date for submission, and the case manager's contact information for questions. Next slide, please. A list of required financial documents are listed on the first page of the Medicaid waiver application. In order for the Eligibility Determination Division to make a determination, it is important that all requested documents are submitted in its entirety. For example, if a bank statement is requested and it is 10 pages long, the individual is required to submit all 10 pages of the document, and all information in the document is viewable and readable. Therefore, it should not be a picture. No sections or information should be marked, redacted, or blackened out. Next slide, please. If any supporting documentation is missing, EDD or the Eligibility Determination Division will send a request for information letter with the date the information must be returned to EDD. Requested documents should be submitted to the Eligibility Determination Division as soon as possible and upload it into LTSS Maryland client attachment under the financial document drop-down option. Reminder, individuals who fail to submit the required documents will be denied enrollment. Individuals have up until the 6-month consideration period to provide the documents before an entire new application must be submitted and the process begins again. A reminder that coordinators of community services should reach out to the regional offices before the reapplication process. Next slide, please. On this slide is a screenshot of various supporting documents that are associated with applying for a Medicaid waiver application. For applying for a Medicaid waiver program. We've also included the links to the long and the short form so that you can click on it and review it. Next slide, please. This slide relates to the state review team process. People without a federal disability determination would be referred to the state review team for a determination. For example, if the individual is over the age of 18 and does not have Social Security, they will most likely be referred to the state review team. Coordinators of community services should share the state review team forms with individuals and their team so that they can complete it and submit it to the Eligibility Determination Division as soon as possible. The state review team forms can be accessed at the link on this slide. Now I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda for questions. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Alma. So any questions about the financial determination? One question we receive is, can the CCS complete the MA application for a participant? So you may recall we've talked about earlier in the presentation with our concurrent eligibility process that you can help to pre-populate the MA application. And then when you meet with the person and their representatives, you can review that information to confirm it is correct and then ask for them to sign it. Linda or Alma, did you want to add anything additional to that?
I think you covered it, Rhonda. Thank you.
Okay. When we use the terms or the word 6-month consideration period, does that mean that it will take EDD 6 months to approve the waiver application before the participant can start receiving services?
No. What it means is that once the person's application has been signed and submitted to the Eligibility Determination Division, EDD will review the application, and if the additional documentation needed, they will send that back. That 6-month consideration period is the period where the person can submit those needed documents for approval before that application expires.
Yeah, so
go ahead, Rhonda.
I was just going to say, that, when an application is submitted, EDD needs to make a determination within 45 days. They may say, Alma needs additional bank statements and things like that. They'll send that out. If they don't receive that within the requested time frame, the person would be denied enrollment in the program. But that application can be reactivated in a sense up to 6 months from when it was originally submitted if the documentation is submitted so that the person doesn't have to complete another Medicaid application. So it's kind of like the application and the requested information needs to be submitted timely as soon as possible within that 45-day period. But if the person doesn't get it in, that application could be reactivated or made live again if the documentation comes in. And so that's the 6 months consideration. People are asking a little bit about the state review team. Is that a new process? When did it go into effect? Amma, do you want to address the state review team process? Is that new?
So the state review team has been there for a long time. It is not new. In instances where a person does not have a disability determination by the federal government or does not have Social Security, they may be referred to the state review team for that evaluation before EDD or the Eligibility Determination Division can make a financial eligibility determination.
Thank you. Do we have contact information for the state review team?
We contact the state review team through our partners at the Eligibility Determination Division. We can partner with them and see if there's additional contact information that could be shared with the CCSs.
Thank you. And the state review team is actually within the Department of Human Services. It's not within the Department of Health. So we'll continue to partner with our Medicaid and our Department of Human Services partners. We got a question. Does a person who is working to complete the long or short Medicaid application, do they also complete the EID Medicaid application? And if so, is there a timeline in which these applications should be submitted? So Rosemary, thank you for sharing that. We will follow up with our Medicaid partners on that just to confirm, because that's within their purview, so that we can make sure that we have accurate information, and they could probably present on that in the next meeting with them. Another question, once you submit the documentation to EDD, does the 45-day review restart? No, it's once you submit that information, it's not another 45 days. So it's important for us all to work with the individuals and families when they're on the waiting list, as Debbie said, to let them know about the waiver process and for them to start to gather those documents so that when that application opportunity comes, that they can submit the application and supporting documents or send any additional documents as soon as possible so that we can get that determination made as soon as possible. Remember, for people in crisis, abuse, neglect, homeless, or even at risk, when we're in this application process, we want to support them to get that determination made as soon as possible. So everything we can do as a service delivery system, including coordinators of community services, the Eligibility Determination Division, and DDA, will help to support individuals and families to start services as soon as possible. Question about where to submit the state review team packets. Amma, can you address that? Where do they send that information?
That information should be uploaded into LTSS Maryland under those financial eligibility determination documents section.
Yep. All right, let's go to the next section. Thank you.
The authorization to participate. Next slide, please. The authorization to participate is the DDA waiver enrollment process after the regional office reviews and submits the DDA waiver application in LTSS Maryland. The authorization to participate tells the Maryland Department of Health whether an individual meets or does not meet the medical, technical, and financial criteria for waiver enrollment. An authorization to participate cannot be submitted until all the eligibility criteria are met. The regional office must confirm that the financial eligibility is marked as approved and submitted before submitting an authorization to participate. Next slide, please.
Any questions about authorization to participate? So the waiver packet goes in, EDD determines that financial eligibility. Once we get notification of that, We confirm technical, medical, and financial eligibility has been completed. That's when the DDA regional office will complete the authorization to participate and send it to EDD. We had a question, can the authorization to participate be done without overall approval? If you're talking about the overall decision, yes, the authorization to participate must occur before the overall decision, and that's our next section that we'll talk about. Services cannot start, though, until program enrollment, which is after the overall decision process. So even though the plan is approved, even though an authorization to participate is submitted, the person cannot begin to receive services until the program enrollment, which happens with the overall decision process, which once the program enrollment occurs, that person's center plan will then become active. Okay, let's go to the next section.
The overall decision form. Next slide, please. The Eligibility Determination Division completes the waiver enrollment in MD Think E&E system based on the authorization to participate form. The MD Think E&E system will automatically update the LTSS Maryland overall decision form to indicate the final eligibility determination, which could be enrolled or denied. Individuals who do not meet the medical, technical, and financial requirements will not be approved. Individuals have the right to appeal if they are found not eligible. Next slide, please.
Any questions on the overall decision form process? So the great enhancement to this process is that now when the Eligibility Determination Division completes the enrollment in the E&E system, the eligibility enrollment system, that will automatically update the overall decision form so they don't have to then complete actions in both systems. And so that's a great new enhancement that we've just achieved. Question, does EDD get an alert when the authorization to participate is done? The answer is yes. If the DDA approved a waiver and EDD approved the financial determination and no state review team has been requested, what could be holding up an overall approval? Happy to connect with you if you want to reach out to the regional office so we can look at the specific situation. Any other questions about the overall decision form? Okay, let's go to the next section.
Maintaining eligibility. Next slide, please. To remain enrolled in a DDA waiver, the participant must maintain their eligibility by completing the following requirements each year. An annual person-centered plan. You must ensure that services and supports continue to reflect the individual's current goals, needs, and preferences. As a reminder, the annual person-centered plan must be submitted within 20 business days of the annual plan date. The annual level of care recertification. This confirms that the individual continues to meet the level of care criteria required for Medicaid waiver participation. The financial redetermination is conducted by the Eligibility Determination Division to verify that an individual still meets the financial eligibility standards. I'm now going to turn it over to Alma to share more information about the financial redetermination.
Thank you, Linda. Next slide, please. One more slide. Thank you. Medicaid checks financial eligibility every 12 months, including income and assets. To continue receiving Medicaid and DDA waiver services, individuals must complete a renewal or redetermination process when notified. Notices may come from the Eligibility Determination Division, the local Department of Social Services, or Maryland Health Benefit Exchange. Next slide, please. Redetermination notices are generally sent about 75 days before the due date. The timeline allows recipients to receive the notice, gather verifications, and submit their redetermination either by mail or online through E&E. Please note that a copy must be uploaded into LTSS Maryland under the Redetermination Document section in Client Attachment within LTSS Maryland. Information received, next slide, please. Information received from the participant cannot be entered until 60 days before their certification date. Applications submitted without all required verifications will be delayed while missing information is requested. Signatures are required on the application or renewal. An authorized representative becomes authorized when the applicant or recipient signs the application. This signature is their authorization. Power of attorney and legal guardians do not need the client's signature, but legal documentation must be on file. Next slide, please. Thank you. Redetermination, if a participant misses the due date, they have 4 months, which is 120 days, to submit a signed renewal packet. Medicaid is not active during those 4 months. Coverage will only reopen if they are found eligible after review. If found ineligible, they must submit a new waiver application. Coordinators of community services must follow the re-enrollment process. Next slide, please. Medicaid uses different coverage groups to serve individuals with varying eligibility needs and life circumstances. Each coverage group is tied to a specific criteria and ensures that people receive benefits that fit their specific needs. For example, the coverage code H01 provides Medicaid coverage for individuals eligible due to SSI or Social Security benefits. Next slide, please. The H98 coverage code is a transitional Medicaid code given after H01 ends. This allows someone to keep Medicaid and waiver services while they reapply. The purpose of this H98 code is to give recipients time, which is about 90 days, to submit a new application. If no application is received in the 90 days, the case will close. If an application is submitted but still pending or missing information SRT review, the H98 can stay active longer until a final decision is made. It is important to note that the H98 is a valid Medicaid coverage group. Thus, asking to end H98 early or saying it's invalid defeats its purpose or could harm participants. Next slide, please. The S19 Medicaid coverage is for individuals who are classified as a disabled adult child. The S20 coverage group is Medicaid coverage for individuals who are classified as a disabled widowed beneficiary. Redetermination notices for S19 or S20 coverage groups cases goes directly to recipients. These notices are not uploaded into LTSS Maryland. Redeterminations for S19 or S20 coverage groups are due 1 year after Medicaid eligibility for these categories are first established. Next slide, please. LTSS Maryland shows redetermination notices for cases where the Eligibility Determination Division, EDD, makes a decision. It will not show notices for S19, S20, PO7, or any other coverage group not starting with H, such as H01 or H98, because the Eligibility Determination Division does not determine eligibility for those groups. Next slide, please. How coordinators of community services can support redeterminations. Coordinators of community services should stay informed of each person's Medicaid status and renewal cycles. They should track due dates and coverage codes and follow up proactively. They can stay informed of each person's Medicaid status and renewal cycles with information that can be found in LTSS Maryland and the eligibility verification system. They should ensure submission of redetermination information and retain copies of information in LTSS Maryland. They should also maintain up-to-date contact information. Next slide, please. Coordinators of community services should coordinate roles and responsibilities of participants and team at the annual plan meeting. They should track due dates and coverage codes and follow up proactively. They should also educate families about consequences of delay and also consult with regional offices as needed. Next slide, please. Coordinators of community services are encouraged to encourage individuals to check their mails and emails frequently. They can also log into Maryland Benefits, which is Maryland's official online portal that allows residents to apply for and manage multiple public assistance programs such as Medicaid, SNAP, and temporary cash assistance through a single streamed application. They can also call the Department of Social Services at the number on the slide or visit the local offices. Next slide, please. I'll turn this over to Rhonda for questions.
Thank you, Emma. We've gotten a few questions, a few suggestions related to financial determinations that you've been sharing with us. Question: if seeking some information or visuals are where participants can locate forms in MD Think. They've tried to support a few people and unable to locate it. We will coordinate with the Department of Human Services, who oversees the MD Think or My MD Think portal, which now I think is Maryland Benefits, to see if we can get some tools or guidance to support you with that. Another question or comment: when uploading redetermination documents into LTSS Maryland, should we upload financial and supporting documents as separate files, or should the application and the supporting documents be uploaded in one file? Can you address with the client attachments, right? We have 3 drop-down options for EDD and which ones they should use and for what purpose?
Yes. So the financial redetermination packet itself should be uploaded into the financial redetermination section in client attachment. The supporting documents should be uploaded into the financial documentation section in LTSS Maryland.
Great, thank you. Let's go to the next section because we're starting to get pretty tight on time. So let's go ahead and go to the next section, please.
Sure, thank you, Rhonda. Next slide, please. Under Medicaid waiver program rules, a level of care recertification must be completed every year. Completing the level of care recertification forms certifies that the individual continues to meet Maryland's developmental disability eligibility criteria. The individual remains medically eligible to participate in the DDA-operated waiver program. The recertification is due 1 year after the effective date of the initial level of care. Next slide, please. As seen in this slide here, the level of care end date should reflect a year after the initial level of care effective date. Next slide, please. The annual level of care forms are posted on the DDA website. DDA and DDA's quality improvement organization, Liberty Healthcare, has identified several incorrect level of care forms that are dated prior to 2022. Any forms other than the current and authorized level of care form, which is posted on the DDA CCS website, will not count towards compliance. Please ensure that the correct form is utilized and uploaded into LTSS Maryland. The current forms are on the DDA website and can be accessed at these links here on the slide. Next slide, please.
Let's go ahead and keep going, just because we are getting close to our ending time and want to get through the materials. Next slide.
Now we're going to talk about denials, terminations, and disenrollments. Next slide, please. A participant may be terminated if they no longer meet the eligibility requirements that are outlined in the waiver program, if they voluntarily choose to disenroll from the Medicaid waiver program. Note, an individual may lose their medical assistance if they choose to leave the Medicaid waiver program. If the individual does not use the coordinator of community services as required, if they fail to complete required assessments or screening, such as the health risk screening tool, which is the HRST. Next slide, please. If the individual refuses in-person health, welfare, or service monitoring visit conducted by the coordinator of community services or the Maryland Department of Health staff. If the individual does not comply with Medicaid waiver program requirements, including those in the waiver application, federal and state laws and regulations, and DDA policies. If the individual fails to maintain continuous Medicaid waiver funded services without lapse exceeding 183 days as required by the waiver application, a minimum of one waiver service must be used every 6 months, or if the individual passes away or is deceased. Next slide, please. Individuals can appeal if they disagree with an eligibility decision, whether it's for their first application or for being disenrolled from waiver program. If an appeal is filed within 10 calendar days of the date on the decision letter, the person may keep receiving services and medical assistance while the appeal is being reviewed. The medical assistance coverage will stay active during this time. If the appeal is not filed within 10 calendar days, the person's medical assistance will end. Individuals who want to reapply should reach out to their regional office. Next slide, please. Reapplying for a DDA-operated Medicaid waiver. We have seen applications that have been submitted without waive placement. Individuals who are denied enrollment or are disenrolled from any of the DDA-operated Medicaid waiver programs must be added to an LTSS Maryland waive before reapplying. A new waiver application cannot be submitted by the coordinator of community services for an individual unless they've been added to an LTSS Maryland waive. Coordinators of community services should reach out to the regional office if an individual wants to reapply or An individual has been globally deactivated and would like to be reactivated. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to turn this over to Linda to talk about some eligibility reminders.
Next slide, please. Some important reminders about the Medicaid waiver application and packet documents. Always submit current documents for the correct person. Submit the full document. If there are 10 pages listed, make sure all 10 pages are submitted, even if one of them is a blank page. Include the complete minutes and the meeting participants. There is a template available on DDA's website. Next slide, please. LTSS Maryland is DDA's system of record. All documents must be uploaded into LTSS Maryland. The coordinator of community service no longer needs to email to the eligibility determination division when submitting the financial documents. The financial redetermination forms should be uploaded to the redetermination application section in LTSS Maryland. Medicaid waiver application should also be uploaded to the financial documentation section in LTSS Maryland. Next slide, please. Financial redetermination forms and Medicaid waiver application documents must be signed by the individual, even if there is a guardian or rep payee. Submit scanned documents, not pictures or screenshots. Uploading incomplete or poor quality files can cause delays. Next slide, please. This is a list of some waiver eligibility resources. There's a fact sheet, a participant fact sheet, a provider fact sheet. There's also the long form, short form, and the redetermination form. Next slide, please. Alma's going to review the process.
Thank you, Linda. So this slide is a general overview of the eligibility process that we discussed today. So as you can see, the first step is determining DDA eligibility. So once an individual has applied to DDA services and has been deemed DDA eligible according to Maryland's statute, the individual is added to a waiting list. If the individual is interested in self-direction, they can note that in their priority category assessment. The next step is the waiting list. Individuals are added to the waiting list and given the opportunity to apply based on reserve category, reserve capacity, and available funding. And please note that the supports and services planning, the services and supports planning tool should be completed annually. The next step is waive placement. Once an individual has been offered the opportunity to apply, they will be added to a waive. The coordinator of community services will receive an alert that an individual has been added to a waive, and the waiver application process can start. The Medicaid waiver application should be completed and submitted within 5 business days from the date that the person has been added to a waive. As we discussed earlier today, the person-centered plan, the documents included in the waiver application can be uploaded into LTSS Maryland. Once the authorization of the person-centered plan, which also would include the self-direction training requirement, is completed, the person-centered plan can be authorized. Once the person-centered plan has been authorized, the DDA waiver application packet, which includes the MA waiver application, the person-centered plan, the level of care form, the freedom of choice form, the EDD release form, supporting documentation, which includes meeting minutes and all of those other documents, can finally be submitted into LTSS Maryland. Once those documents have been submitted, the regional office will review and approve the waiver packet. EDD completes a financial eligibility determination. Once all of the eligibility requirements have been met, DDA will complete the authorization to participate. Once the authorization to participate is completed, the eligibility determination division will complete the overall decision form, which will be auto-populated into LTSS Maryland. Now I'm going to turn this over to Rhonda.
Thank you, Anna. So today we reviewed the DDA application process. I know we've shared a lot of information. Most of it is refresher from information that we have done before. We did have some people ask about the new information sheets, being able to access those. So we will definitely be sending out more information related to those for everybody to access. So we're sorry that those links aren't working for you. I know we are over time. Is there any pressing additional questions that you would like to put in the question chat box for us? We're happy to stay on a few more minutes if you have the time available too. So looking to see if any new questions come in. Someone is asking about someone looking for enhanced personal supports. What does the team need to do in order to have enhanced personal supports? All services authorized in a person-centered plan are based on assessed need. The DDA waiver applications and DDA policies outline what's required in order to demonstrate that assessed need. And we've also outlined and shared a recent waiver changes in you guide. So I would refer you to those tools to support you. If you need additional support, please reach out to the DDA regional office. Question, how does the CCS determine if a person has been disenrolled from the waiver? Notifications and alerts go out within the system to include for providers on provider portal side. The LTSS system will show people's program eligibility enrollment. So you can look to see if the date has been changed and an end date is established. And also you could look for letters within the system. Does any of my colleagues have any additional advice about notifications or where to look for enrollment? I guess the other thing would be checking the eligibility verification system, which providers should be checking and CCSs should be checking regularly. Any additional thoughts, team?
I think you covered it, Rhonda, the alerts, and then they can check EBS as well.
Okay. Do individuals under 18 years old need to sign the waiver application, or can their parents sign as the guardian?
The recommendation that we got is that the person can put an X there. They should note something, and then the parent can sign as well.
Okay. Someone is noting some situations where people are changing their Medicaid managed care organizations and may have gotten disenrolled. I am not aware of that. So if you could please share some additional information and examples, we're happy to look into that. I don't think that those two are connected. Someone's asking for the targeted number of caseloads for CCSs. The DDA does not establish that. I suggest you reach out to your organization. That would be a business rule. Question about what form to be signed if there's a change in CCS. So what we talked about today was that as part of the waiver application packet, there is the opportunity for the person to authorize the release of information to the coordinator of community services related to the waiver application and redeterminations. And so you would refer to the EDD release form. And then another question about provider portal and forms with a person is disenrolled. Can CCS see that information? I don't know that answer to that question. We can look into it. Another person noting that their people are waiting for waiver slot approval for a period of time and waiting for authorization. If you could reach out to Amma, she can follow up to look to find the status of those. So Amma, can you put your email in the chat or in the, so send it out to all so that they're aware of that? An individual denial for a waiver was sent out before a PCP is approved. Should the PCP be discarded? People cannot be denied for the waiver if the PCP is not included, because the PCP has to be included as part of the packet. So please reach out to your regional office so we can further understand the situation. Another question, can redeterminations be deemed late if they've been submitted a day after the letter was dated? Again, we would need more information. If you can give us an example, we're happy to partner with you and our Medicaid partners to look into it. Another question, if a participant is disenrolled, will the provider still be paid? No individuals need to be enrolled in the program in order for services to be paid. And contact, Amma just put in her contact information for the follow-up. So again, we appreciate your time today. Sorry that we have gone over. We will review all the questions and be following up with our EDD partners on another training opportunity where they can address some of the questions specific to their processes. So again, thank you for your time and have a great day.